In the heart of the most powerful empire on earth, a young queen holds a secret that could either save her people or cost her everything. It is not a story of clashing armies. It is the story of a silent war, a battle of wits waged from inside the gilded corridors of a palace. The story unfolds in the vast Persian Empire around 473 BCE, a kingdom stretching from India to Ethiopia. Within this sprawling superpower, a young Jewish woman, an orphan, plays a dangerous game. Her every move is a calculated risk as she works to dismantle a genocidal plot and change the fate of a people forever. Imagine a law that cannot be undone, a death sentence, signed by an absolute monarch and delivered to every corner of a massive empire. There is no appeal. The date is set. Now, imagine the only person who can stop it is a queen who must break the law to even speak to the king and act punishable by immediate death. This was the impossible reality facing Queen Esther, a woman whose identity was her most guarded secret and whose courage would become the last hope for millions. Our story begins in the citadel of Susa, the winter capital of the Persian Empire, ruled by King Ahasuerus. Known to history as Xerxes I, he reigned over a domain so vast it was the world's first true superpower. The king's word was not just law, it was reality. His moods could shift the fortunes of nations. The stage for our drama is set by an act of defiance. The king, in the third year of his reign, throws a lavish 180-day festival to show off the wealth and might of his empire. On the final day, flushed with wine, Ahasuerus summons his wife, Queen Vashti, demanding she appear before his guests wearing her royal crown so he could show off her beauty. But Vashti refuses. The biblical text does not give her reasons, but her refusal is an unprecedented act of defiance in a world where a woman, even a queen, was often considered property. The king's public humiliation turns to fury. His advisors, fearing Vashti's insubordination might inspire other women to disrespect their husbands, counsel a swift response. They argue it is a threat to the social order of the entire empire. And so, a royal edict is passed. Queen Vashti is banished forever. Her crown will be given to another. This decree, like all Persian laws, is made irrevocable. It sends a chilling message across all 127 provinces. Every man should be master in his own house. A power vacuum has been created, and the search for a new queen begins. Far from the palace, in the segregated quarters of the city, lives a young Jewish woman named Hadassah, which means myrtle, an orphan. She was raised by her older cousin Mordecai, who loves her like a daughter. They are descendants of Jews exiled from Jerusalem generations earlier, a minority dispersed across the Persian landscape. Hadassah is described as lovely in form and feature. Her beauty is remarkable, but her life is simple. But the king's decree to find a new queen is about to shatter their quiet existence and pull Hadassah from obscurity into the perilous heart of the Persian court. The gears of fate have begun to turn. The king's search for a new queen is less a romance and more a state-sponsored collection. Messengers are sent to gather beautiful young virgins and bring them to the harem in Susa. These women would undergo a year of cosmetic treatments before being presented to the king. One would be chosen as queen. The rest would remain in the harem for life, never to see their families again. Amidst this sweep, Hadassah is taken. At this critical moment, Mordecai gives her a command that will become the cornerstone of her survival. Do not reveal your people or your kindred. And so Hadassah, the Jewish orphan, ceases to exist. In her place is Esther, a new name of Persian origin, possibly meaning star. This is the donning of a mask. Esther enters the palace, a place of deadly rivalries, with her identity concealed. This silence isn't born of fear, but of strategy. Mordecai, a minor official at the king's gate, understands the precarious position of the Jewish people. Having a Jew as queen could be a great advantage, but it could also place a target on her back. In the harem, under the care of the eunuch in charge, Esther's character shines. The text says she won his favor. He gives her special food, beauty treatments, and 7 chosen maids. She is patient, observant, and obedient, learning the ways of the court while holding her secret close. After a year of preparation, it's her turn to go to the king. Unlike the other women, Esther requests nothing extra to adorn herself. Her humility and natural beauty set her apart. The king sees her, and his choice is immediate. The Bible says, the king loved Esther more than all the other women. So he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen. She has won the ultimate prize, but her new home is a gilded cage. She is surrounded by luxury but is more isolated than ever. Every day is a performance. From his post at the king's gate, Mordecai keeps watch, a silent guardian waiting for the moment his star would be called upon to shine. While Esther settles into her new role, a dark shadow begins to lengthen. A man named Haman the Agagite is promoted by the king, becoming the second most powerful man in the empire. To understand the conflict to come, we have to understand who Haman is. The title Agagite connects him to Agag, the king of the Amalekites, an ancient and bitter enemy of the Jewish people. For Mordecai, Haman isn't just a political figure, he's the embodiment of a generational hatred. The king commands that all royal servants at the gate must bow to Haman. Everyone complies. Everyone, that is, except Mordecai. Day after day, as Haman passes, Mordecai remains standing. His refusal isn't personal. It's a matter of religious principle. To a devout Jew, bowing in such a manner to a man, especially an enemy of God's people, borders on idolatry. He will bow to God, and God alone. When Haman learns Mordecai is a Jew, his anger metastasizes in his arrogant mind. Mordecai's defiance is a reflection of the entire Jewish people, of stubborn, disloyal nation within the empire's borders. Haman's wounded pride demands more than just one man's punishment. He needs to annihilate an entire people to feel vindicated. The stage is now set for a confrontation between the quiet integrity of one man and the raging ambition of another. And caught unknowingly in the middle is Queen Esther, whose cousin has just signed his own death warrant and that of his entire nation. Haman, consumed by hatred, approaches King Ahasuerus with the cunning rhetoric of a master manipulator. He doesn't mention Mordecai. Instead, he speaks of a certain people scattered across the kingdom whose laws are different and who don't keep the king's laws, framing them as a threat to the empire. It's the age-old language of persecution. Paint a minority as different, disloyal, and dangerous. Then, Haman makes an offer the king can't refuse. He promises to pay 10,000 talents of silver and astronomical sum into the king's treasuries, essentially offering to fund the genocide himself. The king, perhaps bored or tempted by the bribe, agrees without question. He takes his signet ring, the symbol of his absolute authority, and gives it to Haman. The money and the people are given to you, the king declares, to do with them as seems good to you. To determine the date for the extermination, Haman casts the lot. The lot falls on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar, nearly a year away. A decree is written, commanding officials in all 127 provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, and to plunder their possessions. The decree is sealed with a king's ring and sent by swift couriers. The scene that follows is chilling. The text says, the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was in confusion. While the architects of this genocide, it's just business, worthy of a celebratory drink. But outside the palace, as the news spreads, terror and grief wash over the Jewish communities. The law is irreversible. The date is set. There is no hope. When Mordecai learns of the decree, he tears his clothes, puts on sackcloth and ashes, and wails bitterly at the king's gate. His grief is mirrored in every province as the news arrives. Esther, insulated within the palace, is unaware. Hearing of Mordecai's behavior, she's distressed and sends an aide to find out what's wrong. Through this intermediary, Mordecai reveals everything. He gives the aide a copy of the decree and gives Esther a charge. Go in to the king and plead before him for her people. Esther's first response is pure fear. She sends a message back, reminding Mordecai of the law. Anyone who approaches the king uninvited faces death, unless the king holds out the golden scepter. Then she adds a devastating detail, and I myself have not been called to come in to the king for 30 days. The king's affections are fickle. To approach him now would be suicide. This is the central crisis. Esther is caught between a law that will kill her if she speaks and a decree that will kill her people if she stays silent. Mordecai's response is a powerful challenge. Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. He shatters her illusion of safety. The palace walls won't protect her. Then comes the line that echoes through history. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. This is the moment everything changes. Mordecai lays out the choice, her safety versus her people's destiny. He forces her to confront her own role in their salvation. All her life has been leading to this single, terrifying moment. Esther's reply marks her transformation from a passive girl to a decisive leader. The fear is still there, but now it's overshadowed by resolve. Go gather all the Jews who are present in Susa and fast for me, she tells Mordecai. She's mobilizing her people for a spiritual battle. Then, with breathtaking courage, she declares, and so I will go to the king, which is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. After 3 days of fasting, Esther puts on her royal robes and walks to the inner court, opposite the king's throne. She stands there, a silent, beautiful figure defying the law, her life entirely in his hands. King Ahasuerus looks up and sees her. The seconds must have felt like an eternity. Then, the text says, she won favor in his sight. He extends the golden scepter. Her life is spared. What do you wish for, Queen Esther? The king asks. It shall be given to you up to half the kingdom. He senses this is no small matter. Here, Esther's true genius is revealed. She is not just brave, she's brilliant. She understands the king's psychology. Instead of blurting out the plot, she makes a simple, disarming request. If it pleases the king, Let the king and Haman come today to a banquet that I have prepared for them. This move is flawless. It buys time, it honors the king, and most importantly, it includes Haman. This inflates Haman's ego, making him feel secure, while also piquing the king's curiosity to an unbearable degree. Why risk her life just for a dinner party? At the banquet, the king again asks what she wants. And again, Esther delays. If I have found favor in the sight of the king, let the king and Haman come to the banquet, which I will prepare for them tomorrow. And tomorrow I will do as the king has said. Her patience is a weapon. She's reeling the king in, building the tension to its absolute peak. She is ensuring that when she finally makes her accusation, the king will be desperate to hear. She is also giving Haman one more night of arrogant pride that will come just before the fall. The queen's gambit is in motion. Haman leaves the first banquet walking on air. But as he passes the king's gate, he sees Mordecai, who still does not bow. This single act of defiance instantly poisons all of Haman's joy. He goes home and boasts to his wife Zeresh and friends about his wealth, his sons, and his exclusive invitation from the queen. Yet all this avails me nothing, he spits, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. His wife and friends offer a brutal solution. Let a gallows be made, 75 feet high, and in the morning suggest to the king that Mordecai be hanged on it. The idea delights Haman. Towering gallows would be a monument to his power. He immediately orders it built. But that night, a coincidence changes history. The king can't sleep. He commands that the Book of Chronicles, the official records of his reign, be read to him. Of all the stories, the servant reads the entry about how Mordecai had uncovered an assassination plot, saving the king's life. What honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? The king asks. The answer, nothing has been done for him. At that precise moment, a sound is heard in the court. It's Haman, arriving early to ask permission to hang Mordecai. Before Haman can speak, the king asks him a question dripping with dramatic irony. What should be done for the man whom the king delights to honor? Haman's ego blinds him. Who else could the king possibly want to honor but him? He describes a lavish public ceremony. Dress the man in the king's own robes, place him on the king's own horse, and have a noble prince lead him through the city shouting, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." The king nods. "Hurry," he commands. "Take the robe and the horse, as you have said, and do so for Mordecai the Jew. Leave out nothing of all that you have spoken." The humiliation is absolute. Haman is forced to personally dress his hated enemy in royal robes and lead him through the city, shouting his praises. After Haman rushes home in shame, his world turned upside down. The shadow of the gallows he built now looms over him. Haman barely has time to process his humiliation before he's escorted to Esther's second banquet. The mood is thick with tension. Once again, the king turns to Esther. "What is your petition, Queen Esther?" "The time for subtlety is over. If I have found favor in your sight, O king," she begins, "let my life be granted me for my petition, and my people for my request." She starts by pleading for her own life, which immediately captures the king's horrified attention. "For we have been sold," she declares, "I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated." She uses the exact words from Haman's own decree. The king is stunned. His queen is part of a people condemned by his own law. Who is he, and where is he, who has dared to presume in his heart to do such a thing? He roars. This is the moment Esther has been building toward. She looks directly at Haman and delivers the fatal blow, pointing as she says, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." The name hangs in the air. Haman turns pale with terror. The king, overwhelmed with rage, storms into the garden. Left alone with the queen, Haman panics and falls onto the couch where she is reclining, begging for his life. At that exact moment, the king re-enters, seeing Haman on the queen's couch. His rage-filled mind leaps to the worst conclusion. Will he even assault the queen while I am in the house? It's the final nail in Haman's coffin. The guard sees him. Then, an attendant speaks up. "Look, the gallows, 75 feet high, which Haman made for Mordecai, is standing at the house of Haman." The irony is complete. "Hang him on it," the king commands, swift and final. And so, Haman is executed on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. The villain is dead, but his evil decree is still the law of the land. With Haman gone, the king gives his estate to Esther. Mordecai is brought before the king, and Esther reveals he is her cousin. Recognizing Mordecai's loyalty, the king gives him his signet ring, elevating him to prime minister. But the original problem remains. The first decree, sealed with the king's ring, cannot be revoked under Persian law. Esther again approaches the king, weeping, begging him to stop Haman's evil plan. The king is sympathetic, but even he is a prisoner of his own declared word. So Mordecai devises a brilliant workaround. If the old law cannot be erased, a new one can be written to counteract it. The king agrees. "You yourselves write a decree concerning the Jews, as you please, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring." This time, The scribes write not a death sentence, but a declaration of liberation. The new edict grants the Jewish people in every city the right to gather and protect their lives, to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the forces of any people or province that would assault them, and to plunder their possessions. It's a mirror image of Haman's decree, empowering the Jews to fight for their lives with the full authority of the state. This new decree is rushed by couriers to every corner of the empire. Hope follows the path despair had traveled. When the decree is issued in Susa, the city erupts in celebration. For the Jews, there was light and gladness, joy and honor. The silent war had yielded a public, legally binding victory. The new decree did not promise peace. It promised a fighting chance. On the 13th of Adar, the enemies of the Jews prepared to act on Haman's original decree. But now, things were radically different. The Jewish people were organized and empowered to defend themselves. Furthermore, with Mordecai as prime minister, the fear of Mordecai fell upon them, and many provincial officials actively helped the Jews. What was meant to be a day of genocide became a day of battle. Across the provinces, the Jewish people fought back against those who tried to destroy them. The biblical text records that in the capital of Susa alone, they defeated 500 men, and across the empire, 75,000 of their enemies were killed. Crucially, the text notes twice that they laid not a hand on the plunder. This wasn't a war for profit. It was a war for survival. Esther then asked that the bodies of Haman's 10 sons, who were killed in the fighting, be displayed on the gallows. This was a grim but necessary political act, sending a powerful message that this would be the fate of anyone who conspired against the Jewish people. The king granted a request. After the fighting, the threat was eliminated. The people marked for annihilation had emerged as victors. In the aftermath, a new tradition was born. Mordecai and Esther instituted an annual festival to be celebrated forever. Purim, named after the paror lot that Haman had cast. Purim was to be a time of feasting, joy, and giving gifts to the poor. It's a celebration of reversal, a joyful reminder of how sorrow was turned into gladness and mourning into a holiday. It celebrates not just survival, but what many see as the unseen hand of providence guiding events from behind the scenes. And that's the legacy of Esther's silent war. It is a story of incredible human courage, of Mordecai's integrity, and Esther's transformation into a queen of strategic genius. Her phrase, "If I perish, I perish," is a timeless testament to the courage required to confront evil. The story is also a masterclass in strategy. Esther's patience wasn't weakness. It was a form of subtle power. She didn't break the system. She bent it to her will. Perhaps the most debated aspect of the story is its theology. The book of Esther is unique in the Bible because it never mentions the name of God. Yet, for many believers, God's presence is felt in the series of coincidences: Esther's selection as queen, Mordecai overhearing the plot, the king's sleepless night. These events seem to point to an unseen hand guiding human action. Mordecai's faith that relief and deliverance will arise hints at a power beyond the Persian court. The story suggests God often works not through overt miracles, but through the choices of ordinary people who dare to act for such a time as this. Esther's actions averted what could be considered the first recorded attempt at a state-sponsored genocide, securing the survival of the Jewish people at that time. While scholars debate the literal historicity of the book, its depiction of the Persian court is filled with accurate details, and it's best understood as a historical novella, a powerful story set within a real historical framework. Esther's silent war didn't just avert a tragedy, it forged a new destiny for her people, turning a decree of death into a legacy of life that is still celebrated today. If this story of courage and strategy inspired you, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that have shaped our world. The tale of Esther is a powerful reminder that one person's choices can echo through eternity. What does the phrase "for such a time as this" mean to you? Let us know in the comments below. In the end, the story of Esther is more than just a religious text. It's a universal human drama about the struggle between hope and despair, courage and fear. It shows that even in the face of absolute power, the strategic patience and bold action of a single individual can turn the tide of history. Esther, the orphan who became a queen, the silent girl who found her voice, remains a timeless symbol of resilience, a star that shone brightest in the darkest of nights, proving that true power is often found in the quiet, unyielding courage of the human heart. Thank you for watching.